Consuming Aberration is the debut full-length from Putrid Yell, definitely a pure death metal band in the Swedish style that was started by a fellow from Phantasmagore back in 2011 down in Vina del Mar, which is nearby Valparaiso, Chile, however you'd pronounce that. So basically, this is a Swedish death metal sounding record that does more with that sound than most do. And I know it's a tough creative sort of palette to work with when the Boss HM2 distortion pedal is really meant to drive through everything else and kind of cut through with its intentionally obnoxious sound. But I've always said it's about how you use it, not so much that it's there. A lot of bands just use it for presence and sort of an indomitable force for the record's guitar tone. But I think we've seen over the years bands like Repugnance and Nihilist and Uncanny and many others use it in a way that is just more interesting. It adds to the aggression of the music and not just the forceful tone of it. So that wasn't always the case with Putrid Yell. I think most of their formative recordings over the last 10 years contained the same songs that we hear on this debut, but in simpler, more plain versions that hadn't quite tapped into the other side of their sound, which is influenced by sort of the black death metal that emerged throughout the 80s, the mid to late 80s in South America. So we do get, I think I mentioned Repugnant for a reason, because there is a bit of a thrashing attack to their sound. There is something that was born out of what Clandestine had started with, as well as, Nihilist before that. And, well, you'll also hear a bit of Asphyx in this record too, but before we get into all that, let's jump into a song so you can just hear just what makes this record kind of tick. So yeah, we can definitely feel a little bit of consuming impulse in some of the movement of this record, and I could point to Expulsor for just some of the more blasted at sections that even Sarcophago would be okay to mention tangentially. But really, what this record reminded me of was the debut from Megaslaughter. Not a very well-known record, and a lot of people felt like it was a little bit too thrash compared to what was big at the time out of Sweden, but they changed it up enough on that record to where it feels like that's as much or close to what Putrid Yell are doing on this debut, in the sense that it's a very underground death metal record that isn't happy to just plod along with punkish songs, but wants to develop heavier riffs. Now, they are pretty straightforward when they're playing those, maybe some of the earlier songs from their sort of 10-year trip towards this album. But as we move to the second half, then things start to get really exciting for my taste, because we start to get into things that are obviously more influenced by like Morbid Vision's era Sepultura, and just the sort of like thrashing death metal and sort of the gray area between black and death metal in South American metal early on, to where this record becomes more and more exciting as it pushes along. And we do get, the singles from the album that came out in preview of it definitely focused on those pieces as pushing it along. But we do get some more standard Swedish feeling pieces on the way there. It's really about the way they deliver them, and not so much about, whether it sounds more like Nihilist or even Autopsy at times. Excepting the guitar tone, which is very referential. So this is a great album. You can, as a note, you can go listen to it on the site right now, since I premiered it a couple of days ago. Huge fan of this record. I do think it is one of the best records of the month, and it comes with a very high recommendation. And yeah, I think there's a lot more detail and some references in the review. At this point, you can go and listen to it and just check it out.